Hello, and welcome to the Innova Conversation. I'm Steve Waltz.
And I'm Jeff Pergelski.
And today, Jeff, we're going to be talking with Rob from ADP.
ADP, hey, Rob, that's easy enough for you to spell, Steve.
That's right. So, Rob, welcome.
Yes. Well, thank you. Happy to be here.
So the joke with that is when I started 5 years ago, we sold NAV, and the inside joke was, Steve figured out finally how to spell NAV.
Okay.
About a year, so.
It only took a year, only a year's time.
It only took a year. BC was a little bit easier, right?
Sure.
We dropped the letter, but welcome, and we're excited to have you on. We were kind of talking earlier. I think of when I think of ADP, I think of payroll from years ago and stuff. But before we get there, could you do us a favor and maybe tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a father of 3 individuals. Well, father, I guess you could say, a teacher as well during this COVID crisis. I think I'm getting the ear learning down pretty well as well. Been married for about 9 years. I have 3 children, ages of 6, 5, and 3. So we're having our hands full during this quarantine period, for sure. Live in the greater Chicagoland area. Born and raised. Interesting fact: born and raised North Side Chicagoan Sox fan. So I've had an interesting upbringing in the baseball world, as I can notice. I know you're a Cub fan yourself, so had some interesting upbringing. But aside from that, big Chicago kid at heart, big Bears fan, big sports fan, big Blackhawks fan, and been in the technology industry pretty much my entire life since graduating from college. It's nice. A little bit about me, yeah.
It's interesting. I was my son's down in Florida, and I said, Saturday is National Italian Beef Day, which is a staple in Chicago.
Yeah.
I had Portillo's for lunch today, by the way, so it was delicious.
Yeah, and I have a Portillo's, but less than a mile away from my house. So I try not to indulge too much because it's bad on the waistline, if you know what I mean.
Oh gosh. So yeah, Jeff, have you ever experienced Portillo's Italian beef?
Yeah, Steve, I do feel a little bit threatened by being outnumbered as a Packers fan by 2 Bears fans.
Oh, no. Can we end this interview right now? I think we're done.
But yeah. You've had more to celebrate, Jeff. You know that. So
yeah, well, so to get this actually, so let's just see, though, where did you go to school? Let's look at college allegiance.
So I went to Northern Illinois University out of DeKalb.
All right. Well, that's respectable. I mean, it's no Ball State, but it's
state conference.
But we are MAC. We are in the MAC together.
Oh, that's
chirp.
Yeah.
I'm just picking at Steve. So I'm a Badger graduate alumni.
Okay.
We're all in the same area. Why can't we get along?
It's how it happens. You had enemies in college, and all of a sudden your enemies in college turned out to be friends, right? After years of just why were we like that? I don't know. Exactly.
Why did we do that when we visited their stadium? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. But hey, yeah.
All right, Steve, get us back on track.
All right, I'll try. So Rob, how did you end up at ADP?
Sure. No, that's a good question. My background itself, as I mentioned, I've been in technology for a good half of 25 years of my professional career. I actually started as a company called ASAP Software, if that it comes at anybody's memory, but we were a volume licensing reseller. And then I had multiple jobs from AT&T encryption, data security. And then I went to a reseller called Comark, which was purchased by a company called Insight and really sold Fortune 1000 space. It brought me along to probably the longest stint of my career to date at all places, Staples. On the business-to-business side, no, I wasn't stocking the shelves in the retail stores, but we were working with more of the business-to-business side, and we developed an IT sales channel.
Mm-hmm.
Was there an individual contributor for roughly about 9 years, and then took a leadership role in that position. And we were purchased by a private equity group, and Staples decided to go private. And really, it provided me maybe an opportunity, maybe pivot and get back to that individual contributor role. And I wanted to get more to that roots of technology that's an intangible asset, a non-tangible asset, really. And I was looking at a few other players in that industry and really liked what ADP had to offer, because the offering is, yes, we're known for payroll. We're the 800-pound gorilla in the industry, but I think there's so much more that we can offer to an organization aside from payroll. And there was a lot of synergies that I really took on from my last leadership role at Staples, where our role and responsibility was really, I guess you could say, providing multiple solutions and multiple internal verticals from an operational aspect for driving organizations' growth. And what's better way to do that and help organizations by people's the number one expense of any organization, and helping organizations manage that expense is definitely an important factor when you're talking to the leaderships of those organizations. So that brought me to ADP.
Nice. And yeah, when I was with Abbott, we actually used Staples. I was remote, and we'd go online and order our office supplies, and you figured there's 60,000 employees. That was probably a good count, wasn't it?
It was a good account, and actually, one of my representatives managed the Abbott account and used to go to the Abbott facilities many times for many meetings. So
yeah, we call that the Puzzle Palace.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another story. But well, that's cool. So you ended up at ADP, and when, like I said earlier, when I got here about 5 years ago, the biggest pain point when I would talk with customers, it was always payroll. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking with guys like Jeff and other members of my team saying, because there was really, Jeff, one solution that integrated at the time into Nav for payroll.
Yeah, I mean, maybe two, but
two, yeah. And so one of the nice things about Navision or Nav, now Business Central, is that it plays well with other systems, and you can kind of connect web services or whatever. And, when people say, oh, yeah, I'm using ADP, I'm like, oh, that's great. It connects well, blah, blah, with this. But, and working with you guys now as one of our ISV partners, it sounds like just kind of last year, like, oh, my gosh, there's a lot of other things that you guys do. Maybe you can tell our listeners a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I think first and foremost, when I meet individuals such as yourself or at a networking event or anything, and I'm like, I work for ADP. And I go, let me stop you there. I don't want to talk to you about payroll. And they're like, what? What do you mean by that? We pay 32 million people, 1 in 5 Americans. I'm pretty sure we can handle your payroll needs. But, how are you, our really goal is to help organizations affect the P&L. There's areas we can do that by reducing essential operational tasks, examining cash flows, OPEX spends. And in today's world, more so than ever, how are they leveraging technology to increase productivity? I mean, employee productivity. Think about it, in the last 90 days, how many organizations shifted overnight from an on-site workforce to a remote workforce? How do you engage those employees? How do you keep them engaged? And how do you keep them productive in a totally new work environment? Those are some of the conversations I like to have with a lot of organizations. And ADP, truly, I'd probably say prior to my time, like I said, it's been about a year, a little over a year that I've been with ADP. But about 5 years ago, Carlos, our CEO, really took over and really wanted to reinvent our organization from a payroll company to a technology company. And we invest hundreds of millions of dollars a year in our technology, we invest more in our technologies than some of our competitors actually generate in revenue on an annual basis. And we're doing so, we're constantly evolving and pushing that chain of adoption and technology to help assist organizations. And it's an interesting area because just aside from technology, we can talk about our unified technology that's all one single solution database. We can talk about the technology, how it takes the employee life cycle all the way from onboarding to retirement, where we handle 401k, and all of those solutions are intertwined within one single unified database. But in addition to that as well, we have a business processing outsourcing. So organizations can actually leverage resources and outsource function and features. I think in this new world is potentially more a possibility. I was just listening to a podcast and it was interesting. They had 3 CEOs And the theme is people are going to have to do more with less. And so organizations really going to have to look into now, an essential task. Yes, payroll, I think we'd all agree. I think Steve and Jeff, I think you'd agree you'd be a little frustrated if your paycheck didn't come in correctly, right? I think any employee could be frustrated by that aspect. But it's definitely an essential aspect, needs to be done. But if you can automate that aspect and allow your employees to focus more on really engaging their employee population, that's a more productive way to manage your employee population than having resources on more of a essential task by just checking the box per se. And those are conversations I really try every day to have with leaders, with HR directors, CHIROs, CFOs, and really a lot of those conversations say, wow, I didn't know ADP can actually do that. Tell me more. How can we assist in that? And how can we help with the P&L? And it all comes down to, I could go on, it's a self-service platform, all those good things. But really there's an evolution in, I guess you could say, this human capital management world of prior to COVID, for instance, you couldn't find employees. There was more really online applications than there were actually employees in the marketplace. So, it all goes down to your organizational strategy. And every organization, right, wants the best employee, wants to attract the best employee, and wants to retain them. But if you're focusing on going back to those essential tasks again, how can you make sure that your good employees are happy, they are comfortable, they are being developed? Some people are happy with what they're doing every day. Some people want to grow. And truly, sometimes those people will leave those organizations because they weren't given a growth path to develop their own professional traits and professional capabilities. And if your HR staff doesn't have the bandwidth to maybe, look into those aspects of your employee population, you're going to lose out on you're going to lose some employees. So, and that goes into what ADP is and what ADP is about. I could go on for hours if you want, really. I didn't know if you had any other areas specifically you wanted to address on the ADP solution.
Jeff, questions you got for our guest here?
I always have questions, but I think Rob, you kind of led into a lot of the different solutions that ADP has. What are the things that you're most excited about especially, and maybe I should sort of narrow the scope of this, but as it relates to Business Central, or the Microsoft Dynamics channel?
No, that's a great question, Jeff. So probably about a little over 2 years ago, ADP and Microsoft developed a strategic partnership. And through that partnership came our API directly into Business Central. And that, and we've then, after it's vetted, really developed a channel and fully focused on partnering with individuals such as yourselves and an organization like Innovia. I'm really excited of what this potential brings after seeing what's out there today. And I'm not going to tout my own horn, but I truly believe our solution can provide some superior technology in an integrated fashion for an ERP style HCM integrated solution. So our connector, for instance, connects through the API, connects directly to the App Store, and connects to your BC, to employee, or the employee card is the GL card. It's a very similar. We have that housed in our marketplace. So as I mentioned, ADP has our own homegrown modules. Our HCM is all your unified database. But just like BC, I think BC has an app store with about 700 ISVs. ADP also has the largest HR app store with about 380 marketplace partners and about 800 coming on. And within one of those is a fully vetted, secured API directly into Business Central. The connectivity here is really, and the excitement here for me is we're able to break the silos of those two molds of the HCM ERP. Traditionally those molds were were maybe siloed, you could say. You could have some GL integration of some standard, but the reduction of duplication from bringing that employee information directly into the employee card to bringing the financial data from a time reporting and payroll standpoint directly into the GL. And we're not done. There's more integration coming, but it's exciting of connecting these two worlds and really for the first time connecting a true holistic employee experience HCM into these connections. I realize you guys have had partners before, but I don't think those partners in the past maybe provided the true HCM connected experience. Another exciting thing that and this was just announced, I want to say maybe about a week or so ago. So for both of you, this is new and it's some stuff that I plan to share with Tom. We've just, our data analytics is something we're very proud about as well. Data analytics, insights, it's the buzzword of 2020. It's great. Every organization, I think, in the cloud software SaaS space touts a data analytics tool. But at the end of the day, a data analytics tool truly is only as good as the integrity of the data. For instance, our data is backed by, right now, over 90,000 organizations and 32 million employees. Organizations leveraging our HCM can tap into that data. And in addition to that, we've also developed some data mashups. So for instance, picture this in your world, and with a connected HCM, clients can now import sales and budgets into the data cloud, which may be information they're storing in the ERPs, and they can bring that into our HCM and provide a complete overview of business-related items. I think that's some really revolutionary technology and a great example of these two silos broken and now merging into one ecosystem, you could say. Hopefully
So,
that gives you. Go ahead.
Quick. So when you say HCM, you want to explain to our listeners what that means? Absolutely.
HCM, it's probably, the traditional word was HRIS, HRS stands for, Human Resources Information Systems of Record. HCM is now sort of the new buzzword, Human Capital Management. So that's really what we're referring to. You see the buzzword, Human Capital Management. Hopefully that gives you a good understanding of that, Steve.
I paid attention. I remember last time we talked about that was a new term for me. I just want to make sure everybody understood what that meant.
Sure, and right, like I live in that world, so it's something that I regret that just comes off my tongue, right? But you always got to remember sometimes people from the outside world don't necessarily relate to that.
There's no acronyms in the Microsoft world, right, Jeff?
Yeah, that's right. We're going to talk about NAV and BC and ERP and then APIs and ADPs and AC. So, I get what you're saying, though, because I think as it relates to ADP, from what I've seen, it used to be that when you were working mostly with NAV, but also in the BC world, you've got like you're going to use a payroll system and all of that info is going to be done outside the system. There's, it's like it's financial information, but you're not when companies that we work with that really leverage the HR part of the system, they really find kind of the base product lacking in terms of keeping track of data beyond, how these employees are as a cost center to us or what we're paying them. And so getting the full 360-degree view of your employees and being able to manage them, like in terms of specialties, expertise, certifications, like all of those things, I think and being able to do it in an integrated fashion rather than having to go to a completely separate system all the time. I mean, that is the nirvana of the mix of, between ERP and HCM.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, imagine the scenario of, having to bring in a new employee. I mean, traditionally, you think about it, they have maybe an onboarding process and they have a payroll process. They got to enter that information in both systems simultaneously, or it's got to be passed along to somebody that's managing the ERP and somebody that's managing the HCM. I mean, it's very simple. I'm simplifying it, but that's a duplication of task. That's That's just one of the many advantages when you combine both of these, I guess you could say ecosystems, Jeff, to your point.
Yeah.
And that's a good point, Jeff. So when I talk with people in the car business, it used to be, and it's gotten better, but 3 times they would have to enter their information. They're filling out the paperwork to buy the car, when they're filling out the paperwork to do the financing, and they'd have to fill out the paperwork and give it again for get their title work. And you're like, 3 times, really? You can't automate that? And still the car industry has gotten better, but there's still it's still lagging in that redundancy world.
Well, if you think about it, Steve, you think about how simplistic, that process sounds. But imagine now when people start to reopen, all these employees that were maybe on furlough or organizations are bringing them back. The task was maybe, think about it, a few times a month. Some organizations can be talking 30, 40, even hundreds of employees, all at once. If they're going to have to, right. It's those are the little essential tasks. But in addition to, there's some other things, that bring to the table. For instance, a mobile app. Our full HCM solutions all available in the mobile app. I could open up my phone right now, get a copy of my paycheck, look at my 401k, make deduction adjustments in my 401k. Heck, when I first joined ADP, I needed to go to the pharmacy and get some medicine prescriptions for my little ones because, they're always sick at the ages that they're at. And I didn't have my employee card at that time. So I went directly on my ADP mobile app, and I was at the Walgreens here in Chicago and said, oh, here's my group and here's my member ID just from the app. It's those little things that are that are trivial, but also very important, that can help you out.
Well, I know I'm probably interrupting on Jeff's time, but what the neat thing about that is we always talk about, you talk about automation and ease. It's so where it's going, because, I was reading an article a couple of years ago that talked about like people under the age of 30, they don't want to buy things the way they used to traditionally. The supply chain is changing, right? They don't want to fax orders in. They don't want to call them in. They want to order them online or on their device, their phone.
Yeah.
And to have that capability is pretty cool. So, but another question I have. So, is there a sweet spot, right? Because we have customers. It used to be back in the day that if you're not doing $10 million of revenue a year, then an ERP system isn't for you.
Sure.
And now with the SaaS and what Microsoft's doing with Business Central, we have customers now that maybe are $1 million, a couple of million. Now they only have 1 or 2 users.
Yep.
But they're growing. We have a lot of customers that are north of $1 billion. So so for your product or your system, is there like a magic number to start at?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So, and just to be clear, ADP has a solution fit for any customer employee size organization, right? I would say for what we're talking about in our partnership and our connector that we've developed with Microsoft, it's for our platform called Workforce Now, which is probably our bread and butter and largest platform. And 50 employees or more traditionally is where that platform starts off for. But if organizations, still need or desire an automated payroll process, maybe it's not integrated with the BC, we do have another platform for organizations smaller of that. And, traditionally it's 50 employees and plus. Hopefully that helps you out.
It does. Sorry, Jeff.
No, that's no problem at all. I'm completely used to that, Steve. This isn't our first podcast.
It's not our first video.
Are you telling me, Jeff, that Steve takes up most of the airtime? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, just don't say CRM. That gets them going. Okay. So I've got a question in terms of how our customers interact. Like, what does a project with ADP and Innovia look like? Like in the sales stage, when are we bringing you in the discovery process, and then from there, how does it get turned over to delivery and stuff?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Jeff. And I think first and foremost, what I'm going to start with is, I think at any point, you bring me in. I am the main point person that works with all of you and everybody at Innovia. If it's just initial discovery, and really what we like to do first and foremost is have a feel out meeting with the organization. We call executive overview. Really understand what they're dealing with today and what they're trying to accomplish or where they want to get to tomorrow, right? And then the next step traditionally is what we'd really like to do is really do a deep analysis of your workflows and processes to truly understand that. So at any point, any time, get me engaged. But I think once that engagement starts, I think it's also, very understanding what this partnership between Innovia and ADP brings to the Innovia community. We have an exclusive agreement with Innovia that customers will get sort of a creme, well, they will get a creme de la creme white glove implementation service. You're going to get an implementation service that provides you on-site training. You're going to get a dedicated project manager. We're going to also train all the managers and employees of the organization. We'll do 7 years historical conversion of your data. We'll also, in addition to that, do what's really interesting, because I think an important piece here with technology, when you implement technology, more so than not, some organizations maybe go back to their old hat or try to do their old workflows in the new environment. So, or maybe you have new employees coming in, or maybe you get familiar with the technology and you see other advantages of how you can leverage it for the better of your organization. I think this is really important. What we will do is after implementation, Jeff and Steve, it's traditionally probably about an 8 to 10 week process. We're going to come back after that implementation 6 months later, and we'll do what's called the post-utilization scorecard and really do a lot of those checks and balances, retrain individuals, do some custom configuration because the implementation's a pure custom configuration, and do all those checks and balances for your organization. So hopefully that gives you a good picture of what that value you get that's exclusive through the ADP and Innovia relationship. In addition to that, you have the flexibility with all this service. It's all ADP backed, supported by our professional service team, but you don't have to work directly with us. You work directly with Innovia and your Innovia billing process. You don't have to necessarily always worry about setting up another vendor. You buy all the products and all the services directly through Innovia. We'll handle all of the implementation and project scope.
Awesome. Well, thanks. That sounds it sounds like even I could sell some of that. Maybe. What do you think, Steve?
No,
I'm not nearly the sales professional that Steve is, so I always have to defer to him.
He does talk more than me.
I'll keep my comments to myself on that one.
On occasion, right? No, it's what I like what you said on that is when we are implementing an ERP system, we don't forget, but the people that we're implementing with still have jobs to do.
Yep.
And so we're implementing the system like you're putting yours in, and they're trying to get it up and running, and so you go away after a couple months, and we like to try to do too is keep that legal pad next to you, have a list, because there's things that you might went over that they just maybe they didn't use for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden, and so that's great to hear that you do that follow up, with them. So I guess the other question is let's say somebody comes on board, decides to go with your system, we get them all implemented, they do that 6-month follow up. Do they have resources directly with you? Do they deal directly with Innovia? A little bit of both, or maybe you could explain that.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, the ongoing support's also critical. It's a good point, Steve, and I'd probably apologize I missed that. With the implementation strategy, you'll get a dedicated account manager through their lifetime with ADP. So they'll have somebody that will work as a liaison through that. And one note to make too, I we just completed an integration of a implementation of probably about a 300 employee organization. Not one IT individual was involved in that implementation, and it was a successful implementation. So, I mean, we do a lot of the legwork, and we will do a lot of the heavy lifting for the organizations. During the implementation stage, they're also getting a subject matter expert for every module per se that they're going to implement. So let's say they're going to do payroll, they're going to do their time and labor, they're going to do their benefits. We're going to roll it out slow and methodical, but they're also going to have a subject matter expert, that will handle each specific module. So and that dedicated account manager is their liaison moving forward. That person is their point go-to through the life of their ADP relationship.
Nice. So a question I like to ask is, so if you were a customer that maybe has grown and you realize it's time to kind of maybe, look at either payroll or all that. I mean, because I guess, not dealing with this enough, do you feel that they think of it all together, or they think of it separately, like HR functions one, payroll's another? I mean, what would you tell somebody, maybe it's either the CFO or somebody in their HR department that's kind of, wondering what's out there, how to go about thinking about it?
Yeah, I think it's really, in my experience, and it's been only about a year and a half, but but based on that, still, it's really the experience of the HR staff and what they've seen, and because some individuals fear change. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But other individuals are maybe willing to accept change and looking at their options. So to your point, some some of our competitors are not a unified database, and those organizations maybe have been working with some of our competitors for so long, so they don't know any different. So it's a matter of really understanding that difference and seeing what that difference is. So if I was anybody, I would first and foremost say, make sure that you are evaluating multiple providers. Definitely number one. Two, make sure I think a red flag first and foremost is if somebody's, you and I have talked about this, Steve, I think too. Some people just push for a demo, right? Mm-hmm. They want to just demo it. And I've had customers, I pushed back. I said, no, I'm not going to do a demo right now. Why not?
Jeff loves a demo, by the way. But he's very good at it.
Yeah. Well, listen, demos are great, right? But if I'm just doing a demo, I'm doing a general demo. I'm not, so, first and foremost, I would caution them, because I won't do a demo for a prospect or a client until I've run a proper analysis.
Right.
Because what that proper analysis will allow me to do is then demonstrate the technology in a real live database representative of your desired workflows. If you're not doing that, I mean, they can say, well, we could do this, but that's not how it works. I mean, I've seen it. Well, that's not how we need to work. Well, we can't do it that way. We need to do it this way. So I don't want the client to have to change because my technology isn't adaptable to their needs. I want to design the technology for them to arrive to their destination, per se, or their desired future state.
And that's good to hear, because, so like, that guy that has all the answers in your company, Jeff's that guy for us. And
sure,
we always like to joke that Jeff doesn't say no too often. So we'll just, so we put some rules in a couple of years ago, right, Jeff? So Jeff wouldn't be demoing. I'm like, I'll just give it to Jeff. He can demo and sell it for me, right? And
but I think that is a valid point. The understanding. I mean, there's probably a lot of competition in the payroll space and the HCM space, and not that everyone's at the level of ADP, but the real differentiator is the complete solution. I mean, how you treat your customers, how we treat our customers, and getting, everyone's time is valuable. And so, wasting time in demos that haven't been properly scoped, and, that is definitely a red flag. So I'm glad to know I'm not the only person that feels that way. I don't always articulate it. Okay, we can show them a demo. Hey, have we gone through and asked what they want to see? Well, no,
right.
But they want to see the software. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to see the software? Just bring up a piece of Excel.
And, and we kind of train them that way. And so we kind of are in the mindset now, discovery before demo, always. And,
Sure.
and I think what they're kind of asking for is an overview, right? Can it do this? Can it do that? And especially if they had a system, because if they want to see, some financials, like, oh, just show me the financials. Well, then you should get into it like, oh, I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
And, so having that discovery is so important prior to the demo.
Sure. I mean, I'll show them a few little pieces. I've shown customers a few little pieces of the technology here and there. Just to your point, Steve, can it do this? Yeah, this is what the look and feel is. This is look, but I'd like to understand further. And that's no problem, because I think to your point. I mean, just see the technology. Well, this is what a look and feel is like, but once again, I don't want to go any deeper than this, right? Because it's just not a good way for the organization to really truly understand how they can leverage the technology to get them from point A to point B. Just my thoughts.
Perfect. And I know we're winding down here.
Sure.
One of the neat things is so on our website, we actually have a list under. If you go to Innovia.com and where it says Business Central and Nav, you can see all our ISV partners, and ADP has a great site on our website. And there's even a video that talks about the ADP Workforce Now solution. And there's a couple things. You can even request you can learn more about ADP. There's a link to that and read the brochure. So that's kind of neat. And so, any parting words to our customers and listeners on?
No, I'd say anybody wants to learn anything more, or understand. Evaluation, of course, is free. We're not going to ask you to do anything of that nature. But if anybody's interested to reach out more, I can be reached at Rob.Boysen, Rob Boysen at ADP.com. Or my contact information is also on your website, or you can reach out to your Innovia rep, as we're partnered together, and looking forward to bringing this new exciting partnership to everybody out there.
And I tell you what, you don't sound like a White Sox fan, because you know what you're talking about.
Oh boy.
That'll be a fun conversation on our next call that we have together. But
that's okay. That's okay. We'll go there, and we'll go. I'll leave the
Blackhawk fans and Jeff's out there. The half Packer fans. So we have a lot of Packer fans at Innovia and Vikings.
Oh no.
The close partnership, Jeff. I think I just blew it. Sorry.
Next podcast, we'll be looking at a different HCM solution.
What do you mean?
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
That one. So, well, great. I'm glad you gave us the contact information. And as always, you can reach out to your Innovia account manager, or you can reach out to either Jeff or I, and we'll be more than happy to hook you up with Rob. You have any questions? The goal is that it's here to help you. We'll try to answer the questions as best as we can. But please go to our website at Innovia.com. You can get more information about them on our website. Also, it's ADP.com, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Deeper on your website.
Yeah.
Then can our listeners find you on LinkedIn?
Yes. Rob Boysen on LinkedIn as well. And same email at robboysen@adp.com.
Great. So we're big LinkedIn fans. Obviously, Microsoft owns LinkedIn, so you can reach out to him there. And also you can find Jeff and I and Innovia on LinkedIn and our Facebook page. So, Jeff, anything before we end our podcast here?
I got nothing, Steve.
You got nothing. All right. Thanks for coming in, Jeff. This podcast is over.
Boom.